Jan Józef Wojciechowicz. I was born in Warsaw, Poland, on the 7th of September, 1935. Both my mother and my father worked for the Polish radio. He was a journalist that specialized in sports. Howard Cosell was the big sports guy here.
I don't want to scare you, Howard. I'm just joking.
I'm terrified.
But it was my private sort of thing that he was Howard Cosell of Poland. And it might not have been very far from truth. And my mother was secretary. They met at work. My mother was the only child, yes, was an only child. And my mother's family was sort of interesting because her father was a judge in the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Her mother was an actress, was sort of a classical older man marrying a young, vivacious actress, you know, and things not turning out quite the way, you know, anybody hoped for. He was dead long time before I came into the picture. My earliest memories go back actually to 1939, to when I was 4 years old, when the war started, and my father went into the army.
I've just returned from Warsaw. For 2 weeks while in the besieged city, I photographed the struggles and agony of a people faced with the horror of modern war.
We lived mostly on bread and water, but there was never enough.
My mother took us out of Warsaw. It was my mother and my governess, the three of us, because the common knowledge at the time was you didn't want to be in a city when the city was changing from one side of the war to the other side of the war. So she took us out, and I don't know, we were on some kind of a horse-drawn wagon that I presume my mother hired, and it was night, and suddenly, very dark, and suddenly off from the side there were lights, and it was some kind of a Polish army unit was coming from the side road and stopped us and led them through. I had snatches of things that I remember. So the ghetto, so there was a lot of people who were quite poor. It was very crowded. The ghetto was horrendously crowded.
(1945). Under the combined assaults of the Western Allies on one side, the Russians from the other, Nazi Germany was vanquished. There was work to be done. First, order had to be reestablished in the defeated country.
Right after the end of the war, there was some confusion. Armies around, there were soldiers around, but there was no civilian or authority. There was a very brief period when there were people who, for a price, would get you out of one place and into another place. So my father, apparently, who was at the time in Italy, arranged for us to join a transport. We left Poland actually as French refugees. But I was certainly aware of the fact that I had not to open my mouth, and speaking Polish with a bunch of strangers around and stuff like that. The train actually took us to Nuremberg in Germany. And then we were picked up by a truck convoy. This was all, if not 100% clandestine, but it's certainly 90% clandestine, because this was also the period where if you were caught by the American authorities, for example, and recognized as Poles as opposed to the French refugees, they would have sent you back to Poland because that was the agreement that I guess was reached at the altar. At some point, as we were driving, the convoy for some reason stopped, and we stopped for a week in a absolutely lovely, idyllic sort of place called Celanzee in Austria. And it was a big mountain lake, and actually I started to learn how to swim there. you got to appreciate, here's a 9-year-old, you know, who's certainly been pulled out of any situation that he knew about, you know, in Poland and so on. And yes, he's with his mother, but she was going to play bridge one night with some other people, and I just, you know, went berserk. You know, that I, you know, one of the stupid, you know, kid-like things, you know, you want to abandon me, you know, that sort of thing. And, you know, I just got more and more and more hysterical, and then finally she couldn't control me, and there was, you know, she just had some guy, you know, who essentially just, you know, ultimately subdue me. I'm sure if it happened nowadays, he would be in jail, you know.
Like, how did he subdue you?
Well, you know, I don't know, slap me around, you know, and stuff like that, and shut up, you know, and stuff like that. And, you know, the normal sort of thing that nowadays is anything but normal.